My name's Cece Danforth. I grew up in Oneida, spent my whole life in Oneida. I started out growing up, I guess, watching my family have fun and enjoy each other, partying around. That was how my family enjoyed each other's company. I guess my house where I grew up was always where all my other aunties and uncles came, and they all partied until the sun came up. And that's usually how it went for any kind of birthdays, special occasions, weekends off of work. And I always thought it was fun, and I couldn't wait till I could do that. I started drinking alcohol when I was 10, and I thought it was fun. And I continued to do that into middle school. Whenever I had weekends away from my family, or even when my family was home, I would just hide with my other younger cousins, and we would get drunk while nobody really knew what we were doing because they were doing their own thing. In middle school, I think before I went into 8th grade, I think I was 13, I had to go to a rehab. My parents sent me there. They were trying to help me because I was drinking all the time and getting in trouble, and that was gonna solve the problem. So I went to Libertas, and I think I was 13, and I didn't feel like I really learned anything in there. All I felt like I did was, I guess, be better at what I was doing. It was like a joke to me. I thought it was funny that I had to go live somewhere else because I drank all the time. And I made a joke of it all the time and just thought it was funny and didn't realize how much I was hurting my family by the choices I was making. That kind of lifestyle went on into high school. I graduated from high school from Oneida, and I believe I went to another rehab before I graduated, before I turned 18. I can't really remember. And I didn't think I was going to graduate, but somehow I graduated, and I continued the party lifestyle, and I kept partying. I guess it was drinking and a lot of cocaine then. And I had turned 18, and I remember my mom coming to wherever I was, and she's like, you're out of control, and you need to get better, you need to get help, and we don't support, the decisions you're making. And I kind of heard her, and I went and packed all my stuff, and I moved out, and I didn't talk to her again for a couple months. And I don't remember about how much time went by, but I had just turned 19, and I called her drunk. She was out of town, so she called my dad to go and get me, and he had to come find me. I couldn't even tell him where I was. He came and found me, cleaned me up, took me to somewhere, and I had to go to detox from alcohol withdrawals. And I was only 19, and they ended up sending me out to Nova, and I had to go to it was in Oshkosh. It was the first rehab facility I went to where I was as being an adult. And it kind of scared me and shook me. I was more scared because my family didn't want nothing to do with me, and that hurt my heart because my family was really important to me. And so when they didn't really want anything to do with me, and I tried to do everything they said at this rehab facility, and then I went to a halfway house after that, and I was there for I think it was 90 days. And I ended up moving out to that area where I was in the halfway house, and I stayed in that area for the next 10 years. I tried my best to stay I guess clean and sober. I went to NA meetings all the time. I did AA meetings. I was really involved in recovery. It was kind of where I was, I guess, learning how to be sober without partying, have fun without partying, I guess you could say. I didn't know how to do that. My definition of fun was getting drunk and blacking out and not remembering what I did the night before. Then I had a good time. It was the end of 2019. I ended up getting a boyfriend, and I ended up getting pregnant. And I was really excited. I was scared at first and nervous, and then I got excited. And I was ready to have this baby, and I was, I guess, pretty excited. And I was sober, and my boyfriend at the time was sober, and I was just really excited to have a baby and be pregnant. And a lot of things had been happening in my life, and not really sure what really happened. I ended up losing my son through my pregnancy, and that's when life kind of changed for me. I had a lot of pain. I felt like I wasn't normal, and I couldn't understand why this would happen to me. I started using pills because nobody could know I was doing it. I was still too young to get my own alcohol, and if people didn't agree with the choices, they wouldn't get it for me, or if I could find somebody that would buy it for me, and they would buy it. But that didn't really work, so I found pills, and I knew that nobody really knew I was doing it. I could keep it a secret. And so I just always tried to keep a secret after that, when I used or relapsed. And so I kept it a big secret for a couple years, and nobody knew that I was using, and I was continuing to go to meetings and continuing to be sponsors for people, or be a sponsor for other women in recovery. And I was hurting inside, but I smiled all the time, and I was always joking and laughing and acted like life was great. And my heart was broken, and I didn't feel normal. That did go on for a couple years. I can't remember what happened but there was some traumatic events, and I had tried to take my own life. I was abusing myself, I don't know, acting out in different ways, trying not to use drugs. And so I would catch myself cutting myself and trying to find other outlets instead of doing drugs, because I knew that wasn't the best answer, but it took my pain away and it made me feel numb. A couple years went by, and I had started dating a girlfriend. I got a girlfriend, and I started dating her, and we moved in together, and we had a really good life. Tried to deal with a lot of the loss of through my pregnancy and stuff, and we were good for each other. We helped each other a lot then. I'm not sure what happened, but when I turned 21, it was actually after I turned 21. I had already been 21. We would hang out with other people in recovery. We did recovery stuff all the time. If there was NA campouts or anything like that, we were always going to them. We went to retreats and stuff all the time, conventions. I was really involved in the recovery community then. And somewhere along the line, I just quit going to meetings, and I stopped being involved with people in recovery, and it was me and my girlfriend. That was our life. And I would go to work, and I would come home, and it'd be me and her and my family. We would see my family a lot. And I'm not too sure what happened, but I had started drinking, and I lived 30 minutes from where my mom and dad always lived. I always wanted to be close to them. And so I lived 30 minutes from them, and I would drink and stuff, and I would keep it a big secret, and nobody was gonna know that I was drinking. And I kept telling myself, oh, that was, when I had a problem, I was just a kid. I didn't know what I was doing, and I've been through a lot, and now I can control this. And I would have countless conversations with my mom trying to convince her that I wasn't an alcoholic, and I didn't have an issue, and I was just having fun, and she didn't have to worry about me. And this went on for a couple of years, and it was to the point where I would call my mom before I would get ready to party, and I would be like, I'm good, I'm safe, and blah, 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 and I would tell her I'm good, and she would go to bed thinking that I was okay, and I'd be out partying till the sun came up. And she started to catch on a few times because we would have like birthday parties and stuff in the morning. And one time I had stayed out all night and I had to meet them for my dad's birthday, I think it was. And I knew if I didn't show up, she was gonna think something was wrong. So I probably just got in like maybe an hour before I was supposed to meet my parents. And my girlfriend thought it was funny. She was like laughing because I was like, I'm never gonna make it, and like they're gonna know something's wrong. And she's like, didn't feel bad for me at all. Like she didn't agree with me drinking, but she dealt with it. She loved me and she dealt with it. And so she would even make up lies for me too, you know, so nobody knew what was going on. And I went to this birthday party and I met them and we were supposed to eat breakfast or something, and I got so sick afterwards, and I told my mom I had food poisoning. And she like laughing at me because she just, you know, she's not stupid. We've been doing this for years, but at this time. And so I knew I was busted, and she knew I was drinking again. And we moved in like a duplex, and that's where my family would come, and we would have parties and stuff out there all the time. And it was like in the country, and we moved from there and we moved to town, and there was like a bunch of bars right up the street. And I feel like that was the worst decision I ever made, was moving to that place, or I guess adventuring to the bars. I was drinking all the time, and I would go right from work right to the bar, and I would drink till bar closed, and then I would go home and I would, I guess, pass out until I had to get up. And then I usually worked like 6 in the morning until 2 at night, or afternoon. So I would get up at like, I don't know, 4:30, 5 o'clock, and I would drive myself to Oneida every day. And probably was still under the influence a lot of times. And I didn't never realize until after the fact, like the situations I was putting myself and others in. But things changed around 2013. My best friend committed suicide. And it was like traumatic events all over again. And it brought me back to that feeling of pain that I didn't want to feel anymore. And I drowned myself in alcohol then, alcohol and Adderall. And I thought it was really cool because I discovered that when I took Adderall and drank, that I could just drink hours on end and I could just keep going and going and going. And that was a big turning point for me because I was continuing to numb that feeling of pain and loss. And I didn't know how to feel. I blamed myself. And then like 6 months later, I lost my auntie, whom I was really close to. She had cancer and she passed away. Like it was like 6 months after my best friend's suicide, and I just drowned myself even more in alcohol. Then right around that same time, I was still taking Adderall and alcohol. That was my go-to. And I did that, trying to drown out the pain, and I just felt lost, and I didn't know how to deal with grief at this point. And I thought that just making the feelings go away would just make it better, and eventually those feelings will go away and life will be great again, and then I can continue to go on with life, you know. And that's what I believed was going to happen, so I just kept numbing it and numbing it. Eventually, my girlfriend at the time, we had been together for like 7 years at this time. She got tired of it, and she called my mom and scared, didn't know what to do anymore, said that this has been going on for a while and she couldn't keep it a secret anymore and she needed to help me. At that point, my parents were pretty much driving around the Fox Valley looking for me in every bar that they knew I frequented, arguing with bartenders, threatening them because they were worried about me. And one of the bars that I used to frequent, there was a river right behind it, and I remember standing in a bathroom stall on the toilet seat because I see my mom and dad's truck pull up. And so I went and hid in the bathroom. I was hiding on the toilet, and my dad was in there yelling at the bartender, and my mom was screaming around, telling them that I was a alcoholic, and you know, I heard her say that she was in fear for my life and what was gonna happen to me, and you know, there's a river right behind this bar, and I'm there all the time, and what would happen if I fell in that river? And I remember hearing her say that, and it kind of hit me, and I remember hearing her voice and how scared she was. And so I went to my girlfriend and told her I wanted to go to get help. And I went back to, I think it was Nova in Oshkosh. And we tried to work through the problems and everything that I had and all the issues I was having, the trauma, the pain, I guess, and trying to deal with loss. And that didn't go well. When I was in that rehab, I met a girl, and we were really good friends, and we were going to meetings and stuff all the time, and I relapsed again. And this time when I relapsed, it got worse. My girlfriend at the time left. I hurt her, and she left. She couldn't deal with my addiction no more. I call it my addiction. She thought it was just alcohol then, but when I relapsed, it got worse. And that's when I found opiates. And this was in 2014, I started doing opiates. It was like Percocets and like Vicodin, stuff like that at first. I liked the way it made me feel, and I didn't have that pain no more. And it was like the ultimate numb. At that time, that's what I told myself. And I was snorting the pills and smoking them. And that went on for a while, and I got in some trouble, ended up going to jail, got out of jail, and went to rehab again. But they sent me up north this time, and they sent me to Koinonia. And they wanted to try to help me. I started to see the pattern myself, like every time I relapsed, it was getting worse and worse. And I really wanted to change this time. I didn't know what else to do. At this time, when I went into this treatment facility, I was tired of life beating me up, and I wanted to change. I did the long term. I got a job at the hospital up there, and I started working, and everything was good. I got out. I was doing really, really well. That's when we found Vivitrol. I was scared to do it at first, but I did it, and it helped. And I took Vivitrol for a little while, and then quit my job, and as I moved back home, I missed being home. I missed my family. I relapsed again. I did some cocaine one night. I was still on Vivitrol, and so I did some cocaine one night, and I thought it was gonna be all right. I thought it would be just like, I don't know, I guess you've been doing so good. It's not your drug of choice. It won't affect you. That's the way I looked at it. And I relapsed bad that time. That relapse went on for probably a good 6 to 8 months. I kept telling myself it was okay. It's not my drug of choice. Nobody's even gonna know. I would say not even a couple hours later, I have to laugh at it now because it's funny how addiction works and how the brain works. I would say it wasn't even 2 hours later, and I was up north sticking a needle of meth in my arm. And the amount of time it took for my life to spin out of control this time, I still laugh at it today because it didn't take long at all. I was going from years in between relapses to months to weeks, and now this like my life spun out of control immediately. That went on for another 6 months. I didn't know what to do. I was doing everything I could get my hands on. I was skipped my Vivitrol at this point. Everybody knew that I was using again. Well, everybody close to me, except my mom. I didn't tell her. I kept it a big secret, and I didn't tell her myself, and this went on for about 6 months. Life spiraling out of control, involved in situations and with people that I had never thought I would ever be involved in, and it takes my breath away to think about it now, because I had put myself in so many messed up situations that I'm lucky to be alive. That was in 2016. I went to jail again. There was like a warrant or something that I never took care of. And I only had to sit there a couple days, and then I got out, and then I went and I tried to do the footwork and ask for help, and it was taking forever. And I was like, scared and wanted help so bad, and I couldn't get the help I wanted or whatever. And I was going through really bad withdrawals, and I had abscesses all over my body because I was so malnutritioned at that point from just not taking care of myself and not caring and just only putting drugs in my body, meth at that time and whatever else I could get my hands on. I had abscesses all over me. And I don't remember what the event was that happened, but something had happened and I freaked out like I don't know, I was like I was having a meth episode, and I freaked out on everybody near me, and I left, and I was up north, and I drove all the way back home. I went to my mom, and I hadn't told her that I was using or relapsed, and so she didn't know, and I went to her, and I just showed her my arms, and I showed her the rest of my body, because I had been trying to shoot up everywhere and anywhere. I couldn't do it anymore. I was just putting it in my muscles, and so the meth was leaving abscesses all over my body, and they had to put me on antibiotics and stuff, and I stopped using, and I fought through it the hard way, and it was really hard, and I couldn't deal with how I was feeling. Like, I felt creepy and crawly, and I was like, I'll never forget the feeling. Like, I sat with really good friends of mine for, I swear it was like 7 days straight, just going through the withdrawals, and it was a terrible feeling, and I sat and went through it. I couldn't do it, and I didn't like the way it felt, and I was waiting for people to get me into rehab, and like, I heard, I believe it was like a Thursday or something, and they told me I was gonna leave on like a Tuesday or something, and so like I had a whole nother weekend I had to make it through. I ended up using all the way to those, like, I think it was 4 days, all the way right up until I got on the plane, and they sent me out to Keystone in South Dakota. I always say that place saved my life. I had got out there, and I was just like so beaten and just wanted to change so bad, and I didn't know how to do it, and I knew I couldn't do it at home, so I had to try to figure it out. And I went there, and we went in like sweat lodges all the time out there, and I prayed really hard, and I just asked whatever these demons are in me, you know, like, I need them to go away. Like, I can't survive like this. I'm never gonna survive if I keep making decisions to put these drugs in my body. Like, I thought because I wasn't doing opiates or heroin, that I thought that it was okay. And I tried to tell myself that, and then my life spiraled even faster. So that last relapse kind of scared the crap out of me and like made me really want change. And feeling the way I went through withdrawals for like 7 days made me really, really want to do better. So I stayed out there. I completed their treatment program, and I moved to a halfway house out there in South Dakota, but I was like a half hour from where the treatment facility was. I was in Sioux Falls, and I stayed in that halfway house for, I think, 2 months or something like that. And I ended up getting a girlfriend out there. And that's when I kind of made, I guess, bad decisions, and I tried to trick myself into thinking I was okay. I started again using pills, opiates, but I never told anybody. I struggled with it because people thought I was being being good again and in recovery, and I was still doing pills. And it bothered me that, I had this like guilty conscience, and it bothered me that people thought I was doing so great, and I was, I'm still using opiates, and I wasn't doing great. But they thought I was, and fast forward a couple years, and I ended up coming back home. 2018, I was home back in Oneida, Wisconsin, and life was hard. 18 was a hard year. Me and my girlfriend at the time, she ended up moving out here with me, and her children moved out here too. And we lost her daughter in 2018. And she was a young girl, and she had epilepsy, so it was really hard to deal with. And life kind of got even worse after that. Then my grandma passed away. That was hard for me. I always had a good relationship with my grandma, and like it was difficult for me to deal with because she was always my safe zone. Like I could always go to my grandma, and no matter what, I felt safe and loved. And so when she passed away, that was hard. I was already using the opiates then. I was still doing pills. I started I had that pain of loss again, and I was like trying to hide it and numb it and not feel it. I was doing Suboxone, and I was trying to tell myself it's okay, it's not heroin, I'm not doing meth, I'm not putting needles in my arms. I was like, and besides, it's like, these are people use this to get off drugs, and so I was really trying to justify it and tell myself it's okay. And I went on for a few months, just trying to deal and numb that loss. And I was getting out of control. At this point, I was back home, and I was drinking all the time, and everybody knew it. Everybody knew I drank, but I wasn't doing drugs, so I'm okay. Don't worry about me, That was, again, how I was having fun and being social with my family or friends or whatever you call them, and whatever you call my people that I like to party with. I was getting out of control with the subs, and I knew that it was just going to get worse and worse. One moment that sticks out to me is when I decided enough is enough. I was in 19. I had just gotten subs, and it was like, I guess, a rough week or whatever, and I just decided that I had enough, and I was gonna shoot up this sub, and I had everything ready. I was gonna stick a needle in my arm, and at that point I had not touched a needle for 6 years. Or no, it was 3 years then. It's 6 years now, but then it would have been 3 years, and I got scared, and I squirted in my mouth real quick, and I threw the rig out the window, and I left, and I just left, and I got scared. And when I came back home and I got in touch with my doctor, he said, we're gonna try to get you back on Vivitrol. He's like, but you gotta stay clean for a week. And it was the longest week of my life, and I went through the worst withdrawal ever, but I did it. And I stayed clean for a week, and I had to go and do a drug test the day that he wanted to see me, and they put me back on Vivitrol injection. And that was March of 2019, I believe it was. And I did that, no missed injections, all the way up until November of 2021, just this last November. It was kind of like a crutch for me. It helped with the cravings. I knew I couldn't get high even if I tried, so it was that safety net for me, and it helped me get the foundation that I needed. And so that's pretty much where I'm at now. The last year, I have been learning a lot, and how, I guess, to be on this side of addiction and not being the using addict there's so many people that are struggling with addiction, and it's something that nobody talks about. And that's why I guess I go out there and try to talk to the people that I care about and show them that there's a better life. You don't have to live that way, and you can be different. You just have to make small changes. That's what I always tell people. It starts with small changes.